Would ask consent that the quorum call be vitiated,
Without objection.
and would also ask consent to speak as if in morning business.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to speak against anti-Semitism and to speak about efforts we're undertaking here in the Senate to combat anti-Semitism. We see it throughout our society, including on college campuses. And my friend from South Carolina, Senator Scott, and I have worked on legislation, not just this year, but for many years on this issue. We introduced together the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act and have been trying to get that passed into law. The significant rise in anti-Semitism across the country on college campuses has made me, and I know so many other members of the House and the Senate in both parties, increasingly concerned regarding the safety of Jewish students on campus. Students, of course, have the right to peacefully protest, but when it crosses a line either into violence or discrimination, then we have an obligation to step in and stop that conduct. I stood on this floor in late 2022 to speak about this subject, anti-Semitism in America, and the exponential rise we were seeing in the years leading up to that point in time, to 2022. I spoke in particular about the hateful anti-Semitism that led to the murder of 11 Pittsburghers at the Tree of Life Synagogue. At that time, we were calculating the numbers as being much higher for 2020, 2021, and going into 2022. But after October the 7th, when a band of terrorists, Hamas, went into Israel and killed 1,200 innocent civilians, since that date, the rise in anti-Semitism across the country and across the world has increased, even beyond what we thought were exponentially high numbers in 2022. The Anti-Defamation League has tracked the highest number of anti-Semitic incidents ever in the United States in 2023. These numbers have undoubtedly continued to rise with the ongoing campus protests. There were over 8,800 instances, including 2,177 cases of vandalism and 161 assaults. We cannot tolerate any form of anti-Semitism, abroad or here at home in America, on college campuses, in the workplace, at our schools, wherever we find it. We have to take action against it. To address the 140% increase, just imagine that, 140% increase in anti-Semitic incidents compared to last year. I've introduced several bills aiming to strengthen civil rights enforcement against anti-Semitism. The Anti-Semitism Awareness Act that I made reference to earlier, working with Senator Scott and a group of bipartisan senators, would mandate that the Department of Education considers a widely accepted definition of anti-Semitism in carrying out its enforcement actions. The Department of Education has an Office of Civil Rights. That office is empowered to conduct these investigations, and we have to provide more funding, by the way, for that office to do these investigations. They are badly, badly underfunded right now. But Senator Scott and I have worked together on this anti-Semitism legislation for almost a decade now, since 2016. I want to thank our colleagues in the House who passed the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act of 2023 yesterday with a vote of 320 to 91. However, one finding in the House bill is different from my and Senator Scott's bill and the Biden administration's countering anti-Semitism strategy, that the use of other anti-Semitism definitions impairs enforcement. Taking this finding out is important because other definitions of anti-Semitism also help to address this terrible problem. But what's even more important is passing this bill today with the unique opportunity that we have. In the Senate, we must take up and pass this bill and pass it today. The hotline to to all Senate offices went out last night, but objections on both sides of the aisle have prevented us from bringing our bill to the floor. We must bring it to the floor and pass it today. But that's not all that is needed to counter discrimination and harassment on college campuses. The office, as I mentioned earlier, the office responsible for enforcing anti-discrimination laws, the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, is, and I'll say it again, badly, severely underfunded. That's why I'm leading the Showing Up for Students Act, which would double the funding for the Office of Civil Rights to investigate incidents of harassment and discrimination, including anti-Semitism, on college campuses nationwide. In the months following the terrorist group Hamas's attack on Israel, the Office for Civil Rights has seen a more than 1,300% increase in complaints related to discrimination and harassment based upon shared ancestry, including acts of anti-Semitism at schools across the United States. This is a staggering increase in incidents and shows no sign of abating. We must meet the moment and ensure that students can learn free from anti-Semitism, free from discrimination, and all forms of hate. We must pass the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act today to ensure that Jewish students on campuses or anywhere else in our society are protected against discrimination. And I would yield the floor and note the absence of, I'll withdraw that. I'll yield the floor.
The question is on the